Before Coco was released, the film was hounded by controversy and claims of cultural appropriation, and since Coco took so long to be produced and went through so many changes, there were tons of scandals to pick from. From Disney trying to copyright the phrase Dia de los Muertos in 2013, to Coco's apparent resemblance to the animated movie The Book of Life, directed by Jorge R. Gutierrez and released in 2014. The Book of Life features a young man who rebelled against his family by wanting to play the guitar instead of following the family trade, then being sent against his will to the land of the dead, where he finds a way to unite his love of music with the family's tradition when he returns to the land of the living. It explored themes of music, culture, family, and love. The superficial resemblances were many and sparked some legitimate controversy and boycotts. The only reason I personally went to go see Coco in theaters in the first place was after Jorge R. Gutierrez vocally recommended it on Twitter. Bearing in mind that both of these movies were being worked on long before they debuted, the similarities are astounding. Most of these parallels have to do with the Land of the Dead iconography, the musical themes, and the initial plot setup. If you only watch the trailers, it's easy to assume that Coco is a ripoff of The Book of Life, no matter how dissimilar the films actually are. That is not the case for The Grave Escape. Never heard of it? Most people haven't. The Grave Escape is a 2-part special episode of the criminally underrated masterpiece of a cartoon called El Tigre. If you think the art style is familiar, your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. Jorge R. Gutierrez not only directed both The Book of Life and El Tigre, the latter of which he co-directed with his wife Sandra Ekiwa, but he considers the two cartoons to be works in the same canon. They take place in the same universe. El Tigre was a Cartoon Network show that ran on Nickelodeon from 2007 to 2008 about a boy named Manny, aka the superpowered El Tigre, son of a superhero but grandson of a supervillain. Most of the episodes dealt with Manny's eternal struggle between being a responsible hero or a fun-loving villain, along with his best friend Frida. Gutierrez's pet projects always involved Dia de los Muertos, and this one's no exception, and the mid-2000s energetic comedy of El Tigre doesn't strike nearly the same tone as Coco's heartfelt quiet moments. But fans of Coco might recognize some key plot elements and just weird coincidences. There are surface similarities. Manny's voice actor is Alana Ubach, who also voiced a main character in Coco. That's right, she's the voice of Mama Imelda. She's got a really talented vocal range. The plots both place heavy emphasis on staying true to the family name, which in both cases is Rivera. The villain plays a guitar with a skull on it. A character named Frida is featured. One of the themes is the main character proving that they're worthy. But the real similarities come to the surface when the plot of The Grave Escape gets started. We see the elder Riveras preparing for the Day of the Dead with the standard emphasis on decor, portraits, and memories, and a bit of exposition for the viewers who didn't grow up with the holiday. The older Riveras introduce some of the dead family members and name them by looking through portraits so the audience recognizes them later. Manny is introduced as constantly sneaking away from the boring setup with a blatant disregard for his family's traditions, sneaking food from the ofrenda, and being willing to go along with the holiday but secretly doubting whether it's all real. These lines in particular sound just like something Miguel says in Coco.
Come on! We all know there's no land of the dead! It's a made-up place, like Atlantis or France!
You're all really out there.
You thought we weren't?
Well, I don't know. I thought it might have been one of those made-up things that adults tell kids, like vitamins.
Manny gets sent to the land of the dead, though granted, he's sent there while heroically helping his friend Frida rather than being cursed. He, of course, meets some talking skeletons who are willing to show him around, although when they realize that Manny and Frida are alive, they freak out.
It's not a mask? Ay! You are alive?
You're alive!
Yeah, I'm alive!
And drop their jaws in a moment of physical comedy. Not only does Manny have a pressing time commitment in the land of the living, but he knows he has to get out of the land of the dead ASAP because he's gradually turning into a skeleton. Manny has to get help from the dead Riveras before his time runs out. But when he goes to them for help, he gets in trouble for having mistreated their ofrenda earlier that night. He has to get help from his ancestor, who seems to be almost an older version of himself, and travels to an abandoned shack where a washed-up has-been is able to get him what he needs. And then they travel back to the land of the living, temporarily rising from the dead, where they all beat up a huge supervillain made of the forgotten dead in a super cool action sequence. Yeah, not every part of the plot is exactly the same, but there's still a tearful parental reunion and a moral of family unity.
I learned today that I have to show more respect to my family. Now you need to learn it. All you do is fight each other.
But I don't want to pick sides. Why can't you be on my side? That's what family's supposed to do. Support you.
And there's still a time limit signified by sunrise. The end moral's also the same.
They'll live forever now, because we'll never forget them.
These aren't just old pictures, they're our family, and they're counting on us to remember them.
Of course, Coco didn't rip off The Grave Escape any more than it did to The Book of Life. As far as I'm aware, most people working on Coco may not have even watched El Tigre. However, the parallels between the plots are interesting. Do you think they're coincidental? Do you think Coco took some inspiration from El Tigre after all? Let me know in the comments below.